Hey, thank you for tuning in the Inquisitive Minds podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Johnny Smith. With me today, my guest is an author, is a lyricist, as well as a stand-up comedian, among many other hats that he wears. Matt Wolfie.
Wow, you nailed it.
Welcome to the program.
10.3% of difficulty. It took me 10 years to learn how to say it.
Welcome to the program. By the way, folks, we will be referring to him as Wolfie because I only got one of those in me.
No, it's cool. Yeah, Wolfie. I mean, I grew up with Wolfart as my name. It actually means, welfare in German. So it didn't really translate too well. Matthew B. Welfare.
Matthew B. Welfare.
It would be a good stage name, though. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, if you're like I just imagine like a gimmick comic from like the 90s. Like, I'm Matthew B. Welfare.
Well, I've had a lot of gimmick names. So I've been Buzz Nutley for a while.
Yeah, tell me about Buzz Nutley.
Yeah, that was probably 15 years I was Buzz Nutley.
You went by Buzz Nutley for
I was always
15 years.
self-conscious about my name. So I was like, Wolfart doesn't, and this is full circle. So when I started, there was another comedian named Wolfie. I said, I'll just be Wolfie because everybody calls me Wolfie. There's even people that know me now for years. They don't know my first name.
Okay.
They're like, hey, Wolf, what's up? And my grandkids call me Pap Pap Wolf. So I couldn't really outgrow it.
That's sweet.
And so I kind of like the Pap Pap Wolf thing. So I just said I'll go to Wolfie. But when I started, there was another Wolfie. And I think he lasted like 8 months in the business. So I said, I'll go with, and I went through this whole diatribe of different names. So I went with Brian Matthews for a while, which was my middle name.
That's not a bad name.
Middle name and first name. That was my first name. And then I said, I need something snazzy because I was working at the Comedy Store. I never passed at the Comedy Store. So you get the audition for Mitzi, and she's like, get him off. He sucks. Right? Whatever. That was one of those guys. But I didn't quite suck. But I wasn't. She likes flawed characters. She likes people that she can help mold and craft. And she's had a great eye for talent. I don't dispute that. But I never got my name on the wall. So if you pass, you get your name on the wall at the Comedy Store. But she says, you're not passed, but you could be the doorman at the main room. So I said, deal. And it was a better deal.
Okay.
Because I got to watch comedy from 6 at night till 2 in the morning.
Yeah, you can't beat that. And I imagine a lot of high-level comedy.
Yeah, and that room was the most real room in the country because you have people from England next to gangbangers, so you can't go out and say, hey, where are you all from? You have to just intrinsically you. And it took me probably, 2 years to have a decent set in that room.
Oh, wow.
2 years. Normally it'll take you like a week or two, but that room, it's just the most real room. And there's a lot of great comedians. I saw Richard Jenny, Louis Anderson. That's where I met Yakov Smirnoff, and I worked with him.
Okay. In Russia, podcast records you, huh?
Yeah. He's been a great friend to me, though. I ended up writing his Broadway show, and I wrote his autobiography, and I wrote his show in Branson with a bunch of other people. But we have a lot of good friends. But he's been really good to me, as far as helping me stay in the business. Whenever I was dead broke, he's like, I have a writing project. I'm like, thank you, because I'm broke.
Yeah. I have no idea what it's like to be self-conscious about your name, given my actual birth name is Johnny Jr. Smith. I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, everybody's a Smith, right? So I had neuroses about everything growing up, I have to tell you. So I had neuroses about my name. And then, so I said, it would be cool to be my mother's name was Walsh. So when we call it in restaurants, we're like, put it under Walsh. Don't put it under Wolfart, right? It was just, yeah. And then I was self-conscious about the color bricks I had on my house, which is weird because we had an orange brick house and everybody had a red brick house. And I felt that red bricks were so much tougher than orange bricks.
These shitty-ass
so I would tell
bricks.
people, so I would tell people I lived at my grandmother's house, which had white bricks. And I'm like, white bricks are better than orange bricks, but orange bricks are the worst. And it was fun. This is so weird, I know. But so then I was self-conscious about my phone number too, right? In Brookline, you had 561-88, and if you had an 884 number, you were hoity-toity. You probably had an attached garage. You know what I mean? But 561 I felt was so much tougher than my name, which was 341.
Todd, you hoity-toity motherfucker.
They probably have an attached garage. We're going to their graduation party. They'll have better catering.
Yeah.
So,
oh, man.
But yeah, so I never talked about that on stage, but it's kind of something I'm delving into. I'm like, wow, man, I've been troubled for a while.
Yeah,
so
I was going to have a stage name when I first started.
Were you? What was it going to be?
Mac Thompson.
Mac Thompson?
Mac Thompson.
That's cool. I like it. It's kind of, yeah, you look like a Mac Thompson.
I think I could fit that.
Yeah, Mac Thompson. It could be a truck driver / comedian.
Yeah.
I'm on the road.
I didn't want to be, I didn't want to have some elaborate name that's like that's not him at all. Like, I don't know, Delavante, Ramirez, or just weird shit people mash together.
Yeah, like
I felt like Mac Thompson be like, oh, that's acceptable. That's close enough.
so there was like a bunch. You ever see people that have great names? You're like, oh, like Ronnie Miserandino, like that rolls off your tongue. I always want to be Mizzy. His name's Mizzy, whatever. God bless his soul.
Paul Castellano.
Yeah, Paul Castellano.
Yeah, a lot of names like that just roll.
Like I'd never be a secret agent. You're like Wolfarth, Matt Wolf. No, I'm out at Wolfarth.
What is the genesis of your last name? What is it?
I'm German.
German?
But not as much German as you would think. Like because I was half German. I thought I was half and half, but I did my lineage, and I'm actually probably like 95% Celtic, and then a little bit of Swedish. So I think I was a victim of a hostile takeover.
Not nearly as much German as you would think.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, like because it's like I'm actually more Irish. I do Irish things like write and think and drink. You know what I mean?
Hey, shout out to the Irish.
Yeah, so I do like Irish. But
Good
I mean, I
people.
like the German side of me too, but it's not, I think it's maybe 10%, but it's not what, I thought it was 50, but it was some more Celtic and Swedish now. So,
I have not done one of those ancestry DNA things. I want to, but I feel like my whole image growing up is going to be shattered because I'm probably sure I'm just a bunch of generic white guy shit.
No, you're probably different than you think. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool to do. I liked it. It's kind of cool to see where your family came from. Like I'm going to go, all my family came from the potato famine, like one little town. They were probably drinking the same bar, and then you'll see people that you kind of like went out with in high school. Like, oh, I was kind of related to her. Like I met a cousin that we kind of went out. And I was like, oh, she's like a third cousin or whatever. But
bought my first car from a man whose motto was incest is best.
No, it's not intentional, but I don't know. Then I found a sister or a cousin, sister or cousin, we don't know, that someone in my family, like preaching to you about good virtue, they had a kid and didn't tell me.
Okay, here's one a little closer. My late wife, her sister and her first cousin are together and have been for 25, 30 years. And they actually have children together.
Okay.
Which I always thought it was weird, because your first fucking cousins at...
So they're first cousins?
Oh, yes. At his father's funeral, he said to the woman, I won't name names, but he said, hey, hon, in this picture, he looks like my dad. In this picture, he looks like your dad.
At least we know the kids will look like.
Their dads were brothers.
Oh, my God.
Like, yeah. So I always thought that was weird. And
it's legal, right?
They're not married.
Oh, they're not married.
Speaking of that, I remember one time, because me and my wife got married, obviously, and she comes and she's having this big conversation. She's like, yeah, we don't need a piece of paper to tell each other we love each other. That's the only reason we haven't gotten married yet. And I remember sitting there thinking, that's the only fucking reason, huh? That's the only goddamn reason.
Yeah, not that we hate each other, I said, normally you don't like your first cousins, though. Like, you need, like, degrees of separation to maybe think they might have virtue.
There was
first cousins
no separation.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to find love where you find it, I guess. I don't know. Look, I'm 57 and single, so I really don't have any answers for anybody. I'm just saying.
Family reunion.
And don't pick up girls at family court. Don't try to do that.
Shout out to my cousins.
Like, hey, what are you doing here? Getting divorced? All right, cool. You want to go out Thursday?
Yeah.
Because I need more trauma in my life.
Now, Wolfie, you already gave us a lot of information right out of the gate. You came out swinging. A lot of stuff I want to touch on, but it's Halloween month. We're going to jump right into some paranormal stuff.
Oh, cool.
I asked you briefly beforehand. You mentioned a seance, and then I said, do you have any more information about that? And you look like you had a bunch of stuff to say. I said, hold it.
All right,
here's the time.
All right, cool. Well, let me tell my Halloween joke first. This
Absolutely.
is courtesy of my buddy. Why don't witches have babies?
Okay.
Their husbands have Halloweenies.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. I don't know.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad.
That's not bad. So, yeah, so when we were kids, we had seance. So we lived by Brookline Boulevard, which, my parents said, stay off the boulevard. I'm like, we live right by the boulevard. How am I going to stay off the boulevard? And I wasn't allowed to go to the cannon. Like, don't go to that cannon. Trouble happens at the cannon, right? I'm like, right at the cannon, and I lived right behind a after-hours club, the BYM club. So I'd wake up, there were people in my yard having sex. You know what I mean? My mom would be out there with a broom, like, get out of my yard. My kid's trying to play. And so when we were kids, we had all this alleys. Like, I love alleys. Like, I always say, I want to do the Alley Cat comedy tour because I'm like an alley cat. I don't want to walk on Boulevard. I want to walk in the alleys. So we had these alleys, and in between the buildings on a boulevard were these spaces, like maybe like a foot or two wide, and we would call it our clubhouse, and we would like hang out and smoke cigarettes or whatever they did, or smoke. Remember smoking Tobies? Like I don't think anybody literally smoked a Toby because they never lit on fire. Like
I
you
don't know
spent
what
all
a
day.
Toby is.
It's those green things that hang from the trees. You ever see them like smoking Tobies? Like we tried to light them, they never lit, so you can't really smoke them anyway. I don't know if you dry them out or what. It didn't work. So my friends are like, we're gonna have my brother and there was a couple friends, and they said we're having a seance. I'm like, cool, I'm in. You know, and I'm 5 years younger than everybody. And I asked them about that. They think I'm delusional, but we called my grandmother back, and I'm not lying. She flew over the wall, like in between the buildings.
So your grandmother was dead?
My grandmother was dead.
Okay.
We called her back.
How old are you when you had the seance?
I was probably 6, 7.
So you were
6
young.
or 7, yeah. So it might be a false memory, but it might be a real memory too. And maybe I was the only one that could see it. But I swore she flew over the wall from the boulevard to the alley and in between the building. And I just turned and hauled ass up the alley because she was still in a nightgown she was buried in. But like, so what I saw was no legs. Like I just saw her flying in her nightgown at me with no legs.
I mean,
that
makes sense, but that'd be
You're
terrifying.
not publishing this live, or
Oh, it's not live.
I'm kidding.
It's not live. No, that's
I
fascinating.
want to share it with people. I to this day, it's a vivid memory. So, and I asked my brother, he didn't remember it. My other friend, he passed away, so I don't know if he remembered it or not. But I firmly remember it.
Now, since that was something that stuck with you, have you done any other seances or had any type of experiences along the way?
No, I know that our house, someone that we grew up in, they said it was haunted because someone got shot with a gun in the attic. So we'd hear things in time to time, like people shuffling and stuff like that. I was never scared or anything like that.
And is the house you grew up in?
Yeah, in Brookline. But there was I guess a child had an accident with a gun, you know, and then but that's what they said. But my mom would hear stuff, and she was pretty intuitive with that. She liked that stuff, the paranormal.
I feel like a lot of that came almost second nature to that generation. They seem to be more connected with like spirits and feelings and things of that nature.
That might be something that we're losing, right? Because we're so connected with electronics that we're not getting in touch with the world, right? So during the pandemic, I haven't really turned my TV on too much. I just bought encyclopedias and read National Geographics from like 1976 to try to write. But I think like we need to get in tune with it. You know, that's why I write a lot of my jokes is walking in the woods, you know, by myself or just and letting it come to me. Like I'll have a joke. I'm like, I'm trying to fix this joke and then it'll get fixed somehow. But I do believe that there has to be something. I hope so. Like I had a dream that like I died and there's a big long white tunnel and I'm walking through it and finally I get the end and I hear it. Welcome to Walmart.
Oh. That's so disappointing.
What if it's like a big Walmart? You know what I mean? Like what? Like they always say they're in a better place. What if it's not a better place? What if it's Walmart or like a Greyhound station downtown?
Jesus, that's horrible.
I'm just saying.
I've heard. You know, there's countless theories about the afterlife. I don't like the one specifically. It's about I think reincarnation is the tunnel you're going through is your birth canal now. Like the white light at the end of that tunnel as you're dying, when you finally get to it and you reach it, you're reincarnated, and that's actually your birth canal.
Oh wow! So you're being born in another world or
another body or what you know.
I'd like to take a rest. I hope I don't go right to living like after this. Like I hope there's like a time where we could take a nap.
You know the fascinating
life is tiring, don't you think? I mean,
life is exhausting.
It is.
The fascinating thing about death that I think about is like when everybody dies,
okay,
they all say, like you just said, they're in a better place.
Yeah.
No one ever goes to hell. Like no one's just sinning and going to hell. Like people don't. It's like almost offensive to people that if you're honest and you're like, Frank was a good guy. No, he was a horrible piece of shit. He's probably burning. He was miserable. He beat his wife all the time. He was an absent father.
He cheated. Yeah.
He's $70,000 in debt. He mortgaged the house twice because he couldn't bet right. But Frank's in a better place. No, he's burning.
He's burning. Do you think there's really like fire though? Like, do you think it's like? Because all right, I'll tell you a funny bit I did. Well, it was a non-funny bit. So I had this idea about like
I have a bunch of those.
Like how life is so evil that the devil gets downsized. So he comes to do open mics like other like burned out celebrities, and he's just like, people think hell is hot. I can't even afford it. I'm on budget. You know what I mean? Like it's just the average temperature of an average retirement home. You know, like people are more evil than the devil. The devil's probably a practical joker.
Well, there was a fun thought exercise I had a long time ago, and it was about like all the things that supposedly send you to hell. A lot of them are very fun, entertaining. Yeah. And what if hell was just like, that's where you want to be because all that shit's going on down there?
Yeah, that's a hell of a party.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You know, just dress light.
Dress light. Hell is every open mic I go to anymore.
Oh man, they're tough. They're getting worse. Right?
Have you guys seen this? Have you heard about this bullshit?
Yeah. All right, here's the thing to the listeners out there. Like if you haven't seen the effects of mental health care cutbacks in this country, go to an open mic.
Oh,
right. Like I think they're cutting people loose. They're like, hey, Jeff, I know you think you're Manson, but here, put a tight 5 minutes together and go to Scarpazi's on a Wednesday. We think that'll really help your mental state.
That's what it is. That's really what it is. There's this one guy I heard. I won't. Oh, let me see how I can. Okay, there's a comic I heard that essentially just runs his mouth on stage about his child and how he's essentially abusive and whatnot to his child the whole time. And he's like, why aren't people laughing at this? This is bullshit. They're trying to censor me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, bro. People don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah, they want you to be. I don't know. Here's a rule of comedy. I will tell you, and I try to tell people this, but the rule of comedy is make women laugh. Right, number one.
Great
rule.
Advice.
Make women laugh, because if you make the women laugh, the men will laugh. But if you make the men laugh and the women stop laughing, pretty soon the man will stop laughing. Or if you make I'm sorry, I messed that up. But if you make the man laugh and a woman isn't laughing, pretty soon the man will stop laughing because he's there on a date. You know,
yeah.
He wants his woman happy.
That's what a lot of people I don't think realize, that the men, if you can get the women to enjoy you, they'll bring the men.
Yeah, you know, they're supportive and they're great, and
I don't know.
They're honest too. Like they'll tell you if you're not funny, and they'll tell you if you are funny.
By no means am I like the best comedian out there or have it all figured out, but it's come to me within the last 6 months that like that's my target audience, is to go after women, and that not every woman or not every woman wants to hear all these, oh, my dick this or my dick that or cunt this or cunt that. And it's like,
yeah, you could probably do without the C word.
People are here for date night. Like, they're not trying to hear all that bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean, number one, you have to be yourself. You have to be authentic. And I think you do write that. You write from a painful place. And that's what I tell people. Just mind your frustrations and turn your frustrations into fuel, not excuses. Mm-hmm. You know, because a lot of people say, I didn't make it because of this. I didn't make it because of that. Well, you know, just turn that to fuel and say, let it power you. Because it's excellent fuel.
Comedy is one of those things, too. It's not like a sports. Like, oh, I missed my window, I'm over the hill. You can pursue comedy till you die. Like,
you can.
And honestly, why not?
Well, I mean, think about how much therapy it is. I said it's the nurture of lost souls. Like, it's a beautiful woman. It's a nurture of lost souls. If you're lost, come do comedy. Mm-hmm. And think about, like, a lot of things in life that separate people. Sports separate people. Gangs separate people. States and countries separate people. But the arts bring people together, mm-hmm. right? Because the actor or the comedian needs laughs, mm-hmm. needs to hear laughs. And then the audience needs to, you know, get laughs.
Absolutely. I mean? When did you start?
Oh, a long time ago. May of '89.
May of '89. Okay.
Where were you in '89?
I was 2.
Yeah, you're good. You loved me. I started at Tom's Diner, which closed. Rest in peace.
In Dormont.
Dormont, yep.
Oh man, Tom's Diner. Hey, shout out to them. It's unfortunate they closed. I enjoyed their food.
Yeah, they did an open mic, and I was afraid to go on. So let me preface that too. I was afraid to go on. I was definitely afraid. And I went to hypnotism classes, and they said, "Hey, you're a great subject. You should probably do something in the arts." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever."
You were a great subject to be hypnotized?
Yeah, I was. Okay. I was hilarious, but I don't remember much of it. Yeah. But so then I said, all right, maybe I'll give it a try. So I started listening to Rodney Dangerfield and Stephen Wright albums and Woody Allen nightclub years, which is, I'd listen to over and over. I also listened to Lenny Bruce, which I didn't really like that much because I wrote in my notebook, I have to admire his ability to live for long periods without laughter, right? But Woody Allen taught me how to write jokes. Mm-hmm. So it's like S.J. Perlman, Woody Allen, Stephen Wright, Mitch Hedberg, and that's the kind of comedian I start. Kind of like, that's why I like your stuff, because you write those one-liners that are like poignant and powerful and surreal sometimes, you know what I mean? And I always wanted to do that, but then I gravitated to another style of comedy, but I still love those jokes. But so I started going to a writer's group and would sit around a room like this and say, hey, is this funny? Is that funny? And I was there for like 3 weeks. I said, you guys are never going on stage, are you? They go, nope, we're not. We're just here to drink coffee. I said, well, I'm going to go get on stage and get destroyed. So I went to Tom's Diner, and I was so afraid. There was a guy, DJ Fisher, and he was a really funny dude, really over-the-top, funny, cool guy, and he had this wheel that he did with, it was pretty wheel of emotions when you're with a woman. He like, it was really funny. And then he goes, you going to go on? I said, no, I don't think I'm going to go on. So halfway through the show, I said, I'll go on. So he put me last. So I literally headlined my first show.
Oh, there we go.
But I don't remember anything. I got laughs, but I was looking at the floor the whole time.
What was it that motivated you to go on stage? Was it just the hypnotism? Because I know we all got a little something in us.
I don't know. I mean, I've always remembered jokes. Like even as a kid, I could remember Stephen Wright's jokes or Rodney Dangerfield's jokes. There was a book called Truly Tasteless Jokes, which got me a lot of detention in school.
I've talked about that book on this show before.
So it taught you
horrid jokes.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Categorized too.
Yeah, exactly. So it got you. And I wasn't like a player or anything like that. So it was just, I think there was a way to get girls to show me attention. Do you know what I mean? And at the time, if I was funny.
If you can make people laugh, they usually enjoy being around you.
Yeah, that's what my thought was. It didn't work out that way. But no, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's so I just liked it. And then when I got that first laugh on that first stage, and you probably know that feeling, when you get that first laugh, you're like, I'm kind of hooked. You know? I mean,
absolutely.
Even heroin addicts would draw the line at some point. Like, they're like, Johnny, I got a gig for $3 up in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'm there. Yeah. Like, heroin addicts, like, I am not going past Sharon. Like,
look, you're gonna have to pay gas money to get up here.
You're
gonna be hungry, but you can do 20 minutes.
Dude,
I'm there.
Dude, I was homeless in Minneapolis, like literally doing a guest set. Because I was in Des Moines and I drove up with my friend. Mm-hmm. He goes, "Oh, do a guest set at the Comedy Gallery, and the headliner will let you crash at the crib." Nope. And I had $40. So, did I ever tell you the story?
No.
Oh my goodness. So I'm up there, and I said I did pretty well, and then I said, "Hey, could I crash at your?" He goes, "No, I can't have you crash." So I went to the hotel downtown, and I said, "I have $40. Can I get a room?" They go, "It's $200 for a room." I said, "All right." So then I went to the emergency room at the hospital, and I walked up and I made up a story, and I figured it would be a good story. And I said, "Oh yeah, I just got off a Greyhound. My uncle's getting a transplant tomorrow. Can I just crash here? I don't want to disturb him. He needs his rest for the big transplant." I probably went too far with the transplant. So the guy just looks at me and says, "Homeless shelter's 2 blocks on the right." So I walked down to the homeless shelter, $6, right? So you have this big warehouse of people paying $6, and I got the top bunk because the guy was bigger than me. So I got upstairs, and then you put your shoes under the bed so nobody steals them. And I'm laying there, and I'm about a foot from the ceiling, and there's like 400 people in this shelter in St. Paul, Minnesota. And there's a poster on the ceiling. It says, "Do you have a strange, unproductive cough? You might have tuberculosis."
Oh.
The whole room had a strange, unproductive cough. It was like a strange, unproductive cough symphony. And it was those mattresses that were covered in plastic, so you couldn't sleep anyway because you had a blaring head.
It sounds like a very similar to like a prison situation.
Yeah, I guess I haven't been there, but I've been
like a prison dorm setting.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I didn't sleep in. I got my sandwich and left in the morning, and that was it. But that's weird. And I did a lot of gigs on a Greyhound. I had a friend that got me discount tickets on Greyhound, so I'd go to Green Bay on a Greyhound, and it gave me time to write. So, but I just tried to jump in.
Some of them Greyhound rides, because I've done that too. Like, I prefer to drive, but if it's like if I'm going to New York City, I usually take a Greyhound, just because parking, it's not worth it. But I get up there, and I had a show at like 8. Show got over at 10. Hung out as long as I could till like 11:30, and my bus wasn't leaving till like 3:30 in the morning. So I'm just wandering around New York in the winter, just like, oh, I don't want to go sit in this goddamn bus stall right now.
Yeah, I know, because it's like you don't want to talk to people in there. Like, did you ever see people fighting over the luggage in Greyhound?
Yeah.
That's my garbage bag.
People go crazy. It's what, man, the ride up there, I had a guy beside me who like smelled all of urine.
Yeah.
But like couldn't speak a word of English.
Yeah.
But his family was right in front of him, so he stayed there, and I was like, oh, this is fucking miserable.
Yeah, your family loves you when they put you on a Greyhound, right? Like, get them out of Greyhound all ticket. Like, get them out of here, please.
On the way back, there was a lady screaming on a cell phone that wasn't there.
Yeah.
At a person who wasn't real. For,
What?
For 7.5, 8 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Just screaming. And when we got to Pittsburgh, like, they brought her off the bus, and I seen the one driver talking. She was like, been doing this the whole trip. Like, I don't know what to do.
Oh, my
I
God.
was like, Jesus, God almighty.
Yeah, but, like, from a comedic standpoint, you're like, I'm writing that one
Yeah.
down. You know what I mean? Because they're way different than anything you can make up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, just when you think you're the most creative, you're like, nope, I'm just going to watch
Yep.
people.
Didn't see this coming. So you've been doing this quite a while, and you dropped a few places from Pittsburgh. How long before you traveled outside?
Well, I started, and then I decided to go to, went through some tough times with, family stuff, and I just needed to get a break and, like, clean my act up or whatever, grow up and mature and all that, because I was partying or whatever, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I took, like, $300 and 3 suits and went to San Diego.
Oh.
And then so I started in San Diego out there and doing shows, and then, like, a month later after getting a job, I got transferred up to Silicon Valley. So
With the job?
Yeah, with the job.
What
And
were you doing at the time?
selling electronic components. So I was
Okay.
selling ICs and semiconductors. And so I got into Silicon Valley, and I did that. And then I got a job at a club called Rooster Teeth Feathers. And I said, look, you don't have to pay me. Just let me host, and I'll seat people. And he let me be a host. And I was getting like 7 times more stage time than anybody else. And then he'd always give me good notes. He's like, conviction, you need conviction. Because I'd always do a joke like, I think this is funny. Do you know what I mean? You know the difference. Like, you'll try a joke, and it's like, then it gets a laugh. You'll do it a little bit better next time. But
Yeah, because obviously I think it's funny. Like, if I'm going up at a mic or something, but I never really know until I get some type of reaction.
yeah, and when it kills, there's no better feeling, right? Like, you're like, man, that's just the way I thought. So that's what I did. I worked there, and then I would do, and it was a great place to learn stand-up because the demographics were so different. Like, San Jose had a Last Laugh, which was a huge club. There was Roosters. Then we can go up to the Punchline in San Francisco. Like, Margaret Cho, she was there. A lot of other people started there, and Sunday nights were great because you'd see every great comedian. Greg Proops was there. Bobby Slayton.
From what I understand, Greg Proops is actually on the Steel City Arts Foundation board of directors or trustees.
Yeah, he's a great comedian, man. Very powerful performer. And, I mean, you're around those people, and then you just get better by association just because you're seeing the level that they're bringing. And it was a really, I think, Seattle, San Francisco are great cities to, I mean, it's so expensive now. I don't think, it's feasible to be a starving artist in San Francisco. But if you can, it's a great city to hone your craft. I think Nashville's the next hot spot.
That's, I've heard a lot about that. Yeah. I know Theo Vaughn is down there now. He just released his special that he recorded there. From what I understand, a lot of bigger name comedians have been moving there.
Yeah, it has.
From like the exodus of California, I guess it is.
Well, I could tell you why. And I think, like, I love California, but Nashville, you could afford to live. You're not starving. You can get stage time, and still all of the talent agencies are down there. So even though they're there for country music, they still have branches for talent. So if you can pop and get on that radar, you have opportunity. So that's what you're looking for, which you don't have in Pittsburgh. Like, you don't have William Morris, or you don't have any of the major agencies here that can see you at a nightclub. And believe me, in Nashville, everybody parties way more than they do in L.A., right? Like, you try to get people out to a club in L.A., they're like, no, I can't drink for 38 days or whatever. It's crazy. No, I mean, L.A. will always be the epicenter, but I think Nashville is a sweet spot right now just because I was down there, and it's great, and they have comedy, and then you have a lot of cities you can go around and keep your craft going. That's the problem with LA, is that you do showcase sets for $15 or $20, but you don't get to do long sets where you can really stretch your legs and, you know, work on that bit that might change things for you.
I've had this conversation with quite a few people about like LA and California. I'd love to go and visit for like nostalgia, see the Walk of Fame, see the sign.
Yeah.
But from everything I hear, that is not a place I'd ever want to live, just with like the traffic or the cost of living or like, and I'm not there, but like you hear about stuff like Skid Row and shit like that. And it's like, I want no parts of any of that trouble.
Well, it's I don't know. My memories are great of it just because we had everybody rented. Like we had a girl that rented the garage. Then we had Roger, my friend Roger Rod. He's still a comedian out there, and he rented the couch. Like, and I'm in his room and we're talking. I'm like, Roger, you know you have a Corvette, and if you sold your Corvette, you might be able to get your own apartment. He's like, Buzz, that was when I was Buzz Nutley. We didn't go back to that yet, but
oh yeah,
he goes, Buzz, you have no idea how Hollywood works, and he goes, and you're kicked out of my room.
Yeah.
So
Let's touch on the Buzz Nutley thing again. I'm sorry.
yeah, so I just when I needed a name, so I was working at the Comedy Store in the main room, and I saw everybody went up with 2 first names, and everybody had the same look. So at the end of the night, you're seeing 30 comedians, and I'm like, nobody remembered who you were.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, I need a name they can remember. So I just, this guy called in from Nutley, New Jersey. And I said, it sounds like Muttley. It sounds happy and fun, you know? So then I just went with Buzz Nutley and made a logo. And I asked my friend, what do you think? He goes, well, I think this. I said, you can't have any thoughts on it. I already made shirts.
Yeah.
So I was that for a while. Then I was writing screenplays, but when I sent the screenplays in under Buzz Nutley, like people weren't taking them serious because they thought like I was a hokey comedian or whatever, you know.
I'll be honest, if someone sent me a message and their name is Buzz Nutley, I'm going to be like,
Yeah, so it might have been a mistake, you know.
Yeah.
So that was all because some guy named Wolfie started doing comedy in Pittsburgh, and then whatever. So
And that guy fizzled out. You said
yeah, it
8
fizzled
months
out,
in
like
or
probably 8 months in. So, but I went on like a 15 or 20-year journey.
So after you moved to San Diego, you're getting this access to all these other places. You're hosting all the time, getting a bunch of stage time. When do you start branching out even more?
Yeah, well, we were doing, I have a good friend, Darren Carter, we started off with, and we had this great open mic on Saturday night in San Jose. It was the 94th Aero Squadron. So they had a great restaurant where you could watch the planes land and stuff at the airport, and we would go up and recruit people to come down the show. And we would get the San Francisco comedians to come down because there was never a Saturday night open mic. It ended up becoming one of the great institutions of the Bay Area. So we would just have shows and just do stage time, and then we would get different shows. And Darren, to his spirit, he is great because he was fearless. He's like, let's go here. Let's go to Jack London Square in Oakland. I'm like, oh, man, whatever. You know, we went to Montebello in East L.A., you know, like he was just fearless. He would do comedy anywhere, and so it exposed us to a lot of different things. But the thing on the West Coast, there's not a lot of paid gigs as far as outside of the city, the showcase rooms. That's the hard part about being there. Where in Pittsburgh, you can do a fire hall. You can go do a VFW or a Moose, which they don't have out there. They have paid fire halls. So they have paid firemen or fired people. Is it fire people? Fire person?
Fire people? Fire person?
Fire person. Yes, I don't want to be wrong. So anyway, that's just really hard. Like you have to have a day job, and then you just do your showcase sets. But you'll get occasional books weeks at like Sacramento or Walnut, and there are some clubs that'll give you weeks, but that's super competitive. And you know you'll get maybe 2 weeks a year there. But we had at that time we had a lot of clubs. So we had Last Laugh, Roosters, Punchline. Punchline. You had to be a super headliner to get that, and then they had Cobb's Comedy, which was a great room. Also, that was an A room as well. But you do Tommy T's in Concord or San Leandro, there was one, and then you go to Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento, which was cool.
Once you're in California and you start heading east, a lot of work in between there?
What do you mean?
Like Arizona, Nevada, just making your way back to like Pennsylvania. Is there a lot of clubs through there, or is that more of a drier area?
No, I would say every town has a club. You know, has a major club, right? At least most towns have a major club, and then there's one-nighters. You want to kind of, you know, pick up with people. And there was a guy named Dan Kaufman who had notorious one-nighters up in the Northwest, which I didn't do because I had a job. So, but my friend Mark Lundholm did tons of them, and you would drive like from Idaho to, I don't know, somewhere in California. It was always like an 8-hour between gigs. He wasn't really good
wow.
on routing, so
Okay.
it was always a Kaufman Hell gig. But you honed yourself up there, because you'd be in Washington, Oregon, all over the Northwest, and those were good gigs to get.
Well, as a guy who's like younger in the game, I always hear about like triple runs.
That's it. There's David Tribble. Yeah, that's
okay.
still, he's out there too. But there was a guy named Dan Kaufman too. I think Tribble Runs was the one that was notorious for the gaps between like
Those ones I hear about, and it just they sound miserable when you're doing them, but they're romanticized when people talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's the only way to get better. There's really no shortcut. I tell people, if you have a strong 15, you need to work on 30. If you have 30, you need to work on 45. And if you have 45, you need to work on your next 45.
Mm-hmm.
So you're never done. There is no they, there is no there. You just have to always keep trying to get where you can get paid to do what you love. When I started, I was fortunate. I'm trying to think of the time frame, because I said I moved right to San Francisco or San Diego. But I think there was a gap because I was in Pittsburgh for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had these runs with Jerry Pace. So he had all these hotels he would set us up at, and he didn't have enough comedians. So he's like, "Hey, can you open?" I'm like, "Yeah." Then the next time I do it, "Can you feature?" I'm like, "I guess." And then I would bomb, and I'd be so mad. I'd be in my room writing all day, like with a bottle of wine or something.
That's that's the thing too. The highs when I'll say kill at a good show, perform your ass off, are amazing, almost unparalleled. The lows, oh man, they are some depths.
Yeah, that just happened to me this week. So we went from a theater show, was sold out, Oaks Theater, packed, had a great set. And then I went to a show up in, we're up in Sharon, and they had like 8 people at a bowling alley. And they were super nice people, but it was just hard to like do a comedy show for 8 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, people are like, "Are you afraid of a sold out show?" I'm like, "No, I'm afraid of 8. 8 scares me."
8's terrifying. No, been there. That low though, it's miserable.
But I think it's harder now for there's more comedians, I think, than before, number one. But I think it's harder to get established now. Do you know what I mean? To break in.
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
Because I know back then, once you got established, it was a hard road. Sending tapes, go on the road, nobody knows you. But now there's people that can get established just from an online presence.
No, that's good. That's a good point, because that Ginger Billy, did you ever see him or whatever?
I don't think I've seen Ginger Billy.
He sold out Oaks Theater in 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Ginger Billy. I've never even heard of him. I guess he's shirtless, like Bert Kreischer, but.
I seen that White Trash Tammy is going on tour. I seen that guy. I can't remember his name, but he walks around in a Coogee sweater in all types of places and just goes, psh, psh.
We got to come up with a catchphrase. Poosh, something with that vowel.
He'll walk up to bodybuilders and bump into them, and they'll say something. He'll just be like, psh. But I've seen he's doing.
Does he get beat up ever?
No, he just walks away, and people are like, "What the fuck?" And he's just wearing sunglasses. He's like, psh. So it's really ridiculous. It is entertaining, but I seen he's going on an improv tour, of the theaters, and I'm just like, huh.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, I'd like to say that it's all about talent, and to some degree it is, but really they're in a business, and if you could put butts in a seat, and if you could build a show around it, then that's gonna behoove you.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I'm small potatoes at the moment, but even situations like now, I don't need a Hollywood or an LA contact to put out a product. You know what I mean? To put this out to the world. And I'm not like I said, I'm not big, but I have subscribers in many other countries, and I did that without Hollywood. So it's it's less needed.
No, and I think that is one key point that you're saying. You can go direct to the consumer, right? And if they establish that there's value there, that is a good thing about it. And if this pops because you could do your podcast and do a comedy show and build that around and do a tour, then yeah, I would say go for that. And you don't have to be in LA, and you don't have to be starving and sharing lunch with your roommate, because you have $5 and.
I got lucky doing this. I mean, I don't know if lucky's the right word, but it's just something I enjoy doing so much that I don't even check my analytics half the time. I'll look once every couple months, oh, okay, people listened, but I just enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I think it's a lot of work, but I mean, you seem pretty natural at it, and you're pretty at ease, and you're comfortable in your skin, which is important.
Yeah, man, I've lived in this this skin a long time.
So going back to you, I guess I'll ask you what made you want to do stand up.
Okay, I've told this story quite a few times, I think, on the podcast and off, but I'll run it through. Always thought I was a funny guy. I always enjoyed that stuff. Stand-up was in the back of my mind for many years, but never pursued it. Settled down, married, enjoyed my life, was a carpenter.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that little life. It was back and forth, nothing spectacular. Then my wife dies on me one day.
Oh, man.
Yeah, dies in my arms one night. It was a Thursday night. It was miserable.
How old?
30.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I was a widower at 30.
Oh
We had been married almost 7 years.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, she was my everything. I fell in love with her when I was 8. So, that was it for me. So when she died, I got to a place of such darkness and low depths that I wasn't even living. I was existing. I would go to work, on the way home, stop at a gas station, grab something to eat, go home, and literally go to bed. There was no life I was living. And one day I said...
God. I'm ready to cry, bro.
One day I said, I'm going to end it. I'm just going to, what is the point? What am I doing here? Everything I loved is gone. I'm just existing to pay these bills. Fuck this. Just kill myself. Before we do that, let's try a few things I always wanted to try. Why not? Made a list. Stand-up was one of the first things on the list, and I happened to try it. I was looking at the Improv, actually, for a open mic, and this is when they were under construction.
Yeah.
So I seen it at class at the arcade. I took it with Colin. I got on stage for the first time, fell in love with it, and essentially stand-up saved my life.
Dude, I remember I told you earlier, number one, I'm so sorry about your wife.
Thank you.
I don't even know, because you're building a life with someone, and you probably don't know my backstory, but it's my ex, her husband died at a young age, and we raised their kids together and stuff. It's something you really don't. Your life is just wrenched from you. It's not something you think of at age 30, right?
We never thought, you never think you're going to be a widower at 30.
No.
Especially when you're not I'm not in active service. We're not in gangs. We're not doing heroin or anything. So it was never a thought that she's going to up and die. She started a medication to help her lose weight. The second day she took it, it interacted with her lungs, seized them up, stopped her from breathing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I was
So
laying...
it's like a diet medication?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
I was laying in bed. She said, I'm going to go out on the porch, get some air. My brother-in-law was living with us at the time. They went out on the porch together. He came and got me. She said she came in, collapsed. So I ran out there, propped her up. Babe, what's going on? You all right? She said, Panda. And that was that's what she called me. Panda. That's why my email is Panda Smith.
Oh my God.
I use that on usernames and whatnot. But she looked up and whispered, Panda. And I was trying to see what was wrong, and eventually I couldn't tell if she was breathing. And I called the ambulance, and she was dead when they got there. I was laying there when they got there holding her corpse, and it was a miserable time. And actually, in November, it'll be 4 years now.
Dude, that's still so new.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to go away. I lived with my ex for 14 years after that happened, but she never got over it. Do you know what I mean? And you're not ever going to get over it. It's like uranium poisoning. You'll get to a half-life of acceptance. But
there's two things, and I don't respond with anger anymore because I'm working on healing, and I know people's intentions aren't bad, but there's two things I absolutely hate when people say to me, and I used to get really aggressive. The first one is, I know what you're going through. And I'll say, did your wife die in your arms? And if they say no, I get a little attitude, and I shouldn't have with everybody.
Yeah, say shut up.
But I was sensitive because people were like, oh, my dog died. I don't give a fuck about your dog. Fuck that dog.
Yeah, dogs are 8 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I care about. I mean, don't care about dogs.
My dog
it's not
died.
The equivalent of
it's
your
not
spouse.
My wife, you piece of shit. Get out of here.
Yeah.
At that one, and I hate people that'll say, oh, you'll find somebody else. That's what you got out of that? Because, it wasn't like I just lost, an accessory.
Yeah.
Oh, your wife's dead, you'll find another one.
Like a charger for your phone, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you lost it, you'll get another one.
And she was my person. You know what I mean? I don't want
what's your first love, right?
Else.
I mean, that's think about it.
She was my only love.
Yeah, so the whole thing, I think, when you look at life, don't you think that people that marry their first loves, they're so much happier than everybody else, right? They don't, they're not lacking. they don't look around. They don't care. They're just like with the one that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a different level of love with that. So, I mean, I don't know. 4 years, that's brutal.
It was extremely rough when it happens. I won't lie and say it's not painful because it still hurts me every day.
So what I do, and there's different thoughts, and I'm just saying, like with my mom, I guess it's a mom, not a spouse. So your mom, you're expecting.
I lost the woman who raised me in December. I get it.
Yeah, so I said they're like your training wheels of life, right? Like you lose one, you're like, I hope I can still lean right. You lose another one, you're like, I hope I can ride this bike called life because I suck. And then, for my mom, I just said, I'm not going to mourn her. I'm going to put her on my shoulder and show her a great ride through my life. So what I do is try to do all the things we talked about doing. Like she died wanting to go to the Grand Canyon, which it's on my list to do, you know, to go there, and she'll show up. And I'll tell you, going back to spirituality, this is probably going to make you feel like it's weird, but when I worked with Yakov down in Branson, right, I grew up watching Lawrence Welk show with my whole family on Sunday night, my grandmother and everybody. And I swore when I went to that show, they were behind me. Like I felt them, you know, so that I feel that their presence is here and they're guiding you. So for what it's worth, man, I don't know. I mean, when I was talking about writing from pain, I didn't know that that's what you went through.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
We're all unique specimens. We all go through shit.
no, and so the other thing is that's what I love about the world of comedy, right? Like we're there for a reason. It's not because everything went right. Do you know what I mean? Like everything worked out perfect in our life. You don't see people from Fox Chapel with like, I graduated summa cum laude. Like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
you
I
can
was-
tell people that don't belong in an open mic
Yeah.
because, like, everything's together, their life's fine, decent job. They're like, oh, just want to try this. Like, no, this takes you hating yourself some nights, so you're not going to make this shit.
Yeah, and it's therapeutic, right? Like, I mean, going back to it saving your life, I mean, I really think it's a nurture of lost souls. So, like, it helps you get through it because some things you can't go around. Like, you can't go around a divorce. You can't go around being a widow. You can't go around your wife. And I don't even know what that feeling is, but I know it's traumatic but you can't go around it. You just have to live through it. And, like, it's hard probably. I mean, it's hard to the point of nothing has ever been harder, right? So, but by writing about it and trying to say, how do I take this and make this a word or make this a thought and build a roller coaster of comedy and ethos and passion, compassion and empathy? Because what people don't realize in comedy is you're not joke. You're building a roller coaster. You could take them to some pretty dark places.
Mm-hmm.
And by being there and say a little bit of relief, you know what I mean? Like, I'll give you a joke about my mom. Like, my mom died, and like everybody was like telling me it's an Irish funeral, right? It's like a happy hour, right?
Yeah.
She's like, let me tell you about your mom. Here's a shot of Jameson. I was hammered. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, please don't get me drunk at my mom's funeral. But I mean, in retrospect, I think she has my back. You know what I mean? She's up there appreciating me for what I bring, and I try to be a good person. You know, I wasn't always a good person like all of us, but, you know, I try to, you know, be good. And that's what I would say, and I don't want to speak for her, but I'm saying that's what she wants for you. She doesn't want you to be sad. She doesn't want you to mourn. She wants you to say, go kick the world's ass like you said you were going to do when we were like 16 and making love when my parents were out of town.
I'll be honest, man. I didn't know who I was after she died because all my identity was wrapped up in being a husband, a provider, just a family man with her. And it took me years. I mean, I'm still coming into it, but this gives me more of a purpose. It gives me identity. I can say this is who I am. This is what I do. These are some of my accomplishments. And it gives me, like, I hate to circle back to this, but it gives me a reason to live.
Yeah.
As sad as that may sound, it's a beautiful thing for me. I want the listeners to know it's not a sad thing. It's very beautiful, but it's my motivation.
Well, I would tell you that a lot of people struggle with depression, like, and they don't talk about it. And I'm thankful that I have comedy. Like, I'm so thankful because I'm like, oh, I'm pissed off. And then I have to think, like, why am I pissed off or why? Like, oh, let me find that joke or let me figure out. Like, I wrote on Facebook and you commented on it. I said, I'm always stuck in the line behind Starbucks with someone who ordered steak.
Yeah.
Like, you're in a hurry. Like, I ordered steak. Like, there's no steak, you know?
We were mentioning that, actually.
Right? Like,
man, this interview or conversation actually went a lot smoother than some other ones do. That being said, we ran through the time very quick.
are we done?
Well, not quite. I do want to get some things out, though. because I know you're an author.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about your books a little bit and describe the process of writing.
Yeah, well, I've always just been driven to write. There's a book by Mark Twain called Roughing It, which kind of changed my life, and I read it when I was a kid. And it's just Mark Twain was a day late and a dollar short, and he was part of a silver mine. He's like, you guys aren't gonna make it, and then he'd leave and it'd hit the vein. But he wrote about it, so he became immortal by writing about it and putting it in black and white. So that's my idol, with writing and everything. So at the end of Roughing It, he has a saying. It just says, if you think this book has no moral, then you're mistaken. If you're of good account, then by all means stay at home and work towards your goals with patience and diligence. But if you're of no account, like myself, then by all means leave, and you'll become a blessing to your family by ceasing to be a nuisance to them. And that was my story. I had to leave to grow up, and it took forever. But it was a great ride. I mean, I learned a lot, and I try to capture it. So I just always have my notebooks, and some of my notebooks are 30 years. But when I was in the Bay Area, Mike Ferrucci, he became a big writer, but he gave me a book by Sid Field called Screenplay, and it was all beat up and tattered. And I'm like, I love that book. And I devoured it because it was like the screenplay frenzy, where everybody was, Joe Esterhaus was selling scripts for $2 million. I said, I'm going to sell one of those. And going back to Panda, I wrote an Ace Ventura sequel, right? And I thought of it before I saw the second one, but I thought of it when I saw the first one, but I didn't write it till I saw the second one. That's what I was trying to say. So it's called Pandemonium, about the pandas get stolen from the San Diego Zoo.
Oh, okay.
And so I got to Hollywood when I moved back to LA, and I was always afraid of Hollywood. I got over the border. I'm like, I'm still alive. Good, because I was definitely afraid. And so I got there, and I sent it out, and this guy called me back as an agent. He goes, I love this. It's a great idea. I'm sending it to everybody. I'm going to send it over to Jim Carrey's agent, and the agent says he likes it, but then I'm not shopping for Porsche. I'm like, Hollywood's easy, you know what I mean? And then Jim Carrey said he didn't want to do a third one, and then my agent went away, and he was sick, and that was the last thing I think he represented, because he had lung cancer.
Oh, my condolences.
But yeah, so I never got back there. Do you know what I mean? But I kept writing, but that guy called me. He said, look, you didn't sell it. He goes, but don't ever quit writing. You have talent. So I listened to him. His name was Bobby Littman.
How many books have you written?
I've written 9 screenplays. The last screenplay I wrote was called Tightwad Wedding, and that's about 2 people planning a wedding to make money off it, and they fall in love in the process, like a romantic comedy. And then I've written ABC's a stand-up comedy, which I just released 2.0. And then I have a book coming out called My Life in Lyrics, which is music lyrics.
Yeah, because you mentioned, I tried to call you a musician. You said you were a lyricist.
I just write poems, right? Like poetry, you talk about comedy coming from pain. Poetry comes from a lot of pain. You know what I mean? So I just started writing poetry, and this guy, John Vento, I guess his lyricist, I don't know what happened, but he said, hey, I need someone to write lyrics for a song. And I sent them some, and I was fortunate that they produced them. They produced 6 songs. We're working on the 7th right now.
That's pretty badass.
So I wrote Last Sunset, Let God Drive. I don't know, there's another one, New Mexico Way, which I wrote about my land in New Mexico, which I never got back to. So that, and then the book, and then I have a book that I'm most proud of called Suicide Angel. Mm-hmm. So one of my best friends killed himself, and I just wanted to try to capture that somehow to figure out how we can, avert it in the future. When someone dies, from suicide, we're all in the same. We're just numb, and we don't know what to say. What could we have done? So this is about 4 people that kill themselves in Pittsburgh on the same day, and they get picked up by a suicide angel. And by divulging why you kill yourself, you get to take something off your bucket list. So it's kind of like a modern day Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. They go on a grand journey, realize life's worth living, and it might have a happy ending.
I may be unique, but I've seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang probably 300 times.
I love that movie.
When I was a child, there was a bunch of movies that we watched all the time. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Grease.
I loved Grease. That was a date movie for us. We would take girls.
Fucking Sister Act.
Oh, Sister Act?
Those 3 movies, my sister played those all the time.
That was pretty awesome. Sister Act.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Was all of 33 years old before I realized the sequel, Back in the Habit, was a play on words. So I'm kind of disappointed in myself on that. Other than that, man, I don't know. Let me ask you. That's a fascinating concept, by the way. Good time to promo yourself. where can you be found?
Just go to wolfiecentral.com. I do a lot of, like, I'm staying close. I have a day job, but I stay within like 2 or 3 hours of Pittsburgh. And then I just write. I mean, I probably hide behind my writing. I'm probably erring on the side of writing instead of living life. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I'm an observer of the world and not a participant a lot of times. Like, I'm the fifth person in a 4-person hot tub, and like, what's he doing here? Like,
I don't know. I thought that was a unique experience to me, feeling like an outsider all the time, no matter what the situation. But the more I talk to other comics, especially more established comics, they don't necessarily say those words, but give me those feelings.
Yeah, just I don't know. I'm not in a bad place. You know, my family's like, I had to deal with some estrangement from a daughter that I loved, and I had to make I made tough choices when I was younger, and I'm trying to make those better. And family in life, you're always trying to match the places with the faces, right? So in the end, the faces win, and they're the most important thing. They're better than any sunset, better than any place you can go or run to. And I have to learn how to stay put and, you know, not run like a tumbleweed. But overall, I mean, I try to capture things, and I love to write, so it's not really a job to me. I just try to capture thoughts.
This is a point in the episode where I like to ask people for a piece of advice. Like, you've already given out great advice this whole episode, but just in general, whatever you feel like getting off your chest, it doesn't have to be about anything specific, but what advice would you like to give to the people?
I would just say people in life are buying authenticity. Just be yourself, whoever that may be. And I think the more you don't give a shit about what people think of you, the more they like you, right? And they respect your opinion, because what people are buying comedically, they're not buying jokes, they're buying authenticity. Like, when you leave the stage, do I know him a little bit better? You know, not that like, oh, he was hilarious and I don't remember anything he said. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person that when you leave, they're like, man, I went through pain like that, and he gave me therapy. Like that book, I wasn't even going to publish this Suicide Angel. Then this guy was depressed at the coffee store I went to. I said, well, I'll let you read it. And then he wrote a glowing review of it, how it changed his life and made him like think of things. And I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? Because I thought it sucked, right? And then other people read it and they gave it like 5 stars. And I said, well, good. I'm glad I could help someone, because I just don't want people to, you know, here's the other thing. I'll say this most important, like going back to my friend killing himself. Stick around. Sundays suck for me. I hate Sundays, like that 60 minutes clock. I'm like, oh my God, I can't take it. I got to go to work. Right. But stick around. So the story of my friend that killed himself, he liked redheads. I was redhead, so I didn't date redheads because, like, we felt like me and my friend Darren felt like that's 2 negative numbers going out. You know what I mean? So we try to make the freckles out of our family. That's kind of what I try to do. So I'm always attracted to dark skinned girls and Latino girls or whatever. And so the whole point was he liked redhead girls. So I'm in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, like probably a month after he died, and I did a show. And this beautiful girl came up after the show. She goes, you're really funny. She goes, are you from Pittsburgh? And I go, yeah. She goes, you from Brooklyn? I said, yeah. She goes, do you know a guy named Steve? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, we went out in high school or college, at Clarion or whatever, and I wanted to reacquaint myself with him. You know what I mean? And I said, well, he killed himself like a month ago. So if he would have stuck around, he might have found his wife, you know, that night. You know, and the other thing was he wanted to do stand-up, and he never told me. Like, I do headline. I could throw anybody 10 minutes. Like, if he would have just told me, I would have threw him on the stage for 10 minutes. Because going back to what you said earlier, you know how it saved your life, right? It could have saved his life. Mm-hmm. So comedy has room for you. I guess that's the advice I want to give. If you're depressed and you feel down and out and you have nowhere to go, come to an open mic. We'll make room for you.
Well, there's definitely room.
So that's my advice, I guess.
That was touching, actually.
Yeah.
That was... Good Lord. You know, I've talked to you numerous times off stage before, but, like, just listening to your situation a little more and how you say right through pain and everything, it makes me understand it. Like, pieces are getting connected more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Holy shit. You know, a lot of times I find myself the most serious conversations I have are with comics.
We're not always on all the time. I mean, we come from dark places. Like, I don't know, man. I'm in a good place. Like, I mean, I just try to, I'm late in the game too, right? So I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, mm-hmm. and I don't really care if I get an HBO special or a dry bar special or anything like that. I'm just at a point where, like, I just want to take it one joke at a time and try to make people laugh. Like my friend, I gave him a joke he had to speak in front of all these accountants, and I gave him a joke. He goes, oh, thanks for your joke. It killed. So, like, that was like my big victory for today.
Well, that's nice. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so.
No, I want to thank you for coming on, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
Learned so much more about you, and I feel like I only just scratched the surface. If in the future you'd like to come back, I'd love to have you on another time.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's always great seeing Todd, and Idiot Radio is awesome, and they've been good to me. But I mean, I want to reiterate to you to stay with it because you come from a real place, right?
Yes.
You're not writing fiction. You're not sitting there trying to write jokes and make people laugh. You're just saying, how do I take this? Let me give you an example. So there's people that have this great joke and they build a scene around it, right? Mm-hmm. But you have a great scene and you get the jokes out of it organically, and there's way more jokes. Like, don't give them bread when you can give them the nooks and crannies of an English muffin. So
I remember you telling me.
Yeah, dig deep in there. And then the last thing I would say is do the last show of your life every time you step on stage, because there's a lot of people that want to go on stage that can't. Rodney Dangerfield, Mitch Hedberg. So every time you step on
Greg
stage.
Giraldo.
Yeah,
Charlie Murphy. There's so many.
Yeah, so you were able to do it. So don't waste that opportunity and don't waste your minutes.
Jesus, Wolfie, I love you, brother. Holy shit. It's interesting you say that, too, because I used to try and write jokes, just come out, pull a joke out of the air. And now I find myself just writing a passage about my life and then removing, word economy shit and then adding something to make it funny. And maybe a slight exaggeration here or there, but the majority of it is all from my life.
Yeah, and we've talked right off stage. So whatever you want to give the world, you give them. But I mean, you have a lot to mine. I'm telling you, have a rich mind. So don't worry about it. And and here's the other thing: it's freeing, right? So when you give it away, that thing you're hiding, to the world, then it's freeing. You're like, all right, they can't all right. So go back to Eminem in 8 Mile, right? Mm-hmm. When he ripped on all the things they were going to rip on him.
Yeah,
that's what great comedy is. You're like, all right. Then you can't rip on me about that stuff because I already ripped on myself about it. So you're empty. Your guns are gone.
Speaking of that, guys, next week on the 4th, I believe it is Thursday, I'll be the main event at Roast War Championship Baltimore. If you're in the area, come check that out. It's going to be a great show.
Where's that at?
Baltimore.
In Baltimore, yeah. Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a Baltimore house on 51.
I've been there. Not a bad place.
That's cool. Baltimore's great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I was there a few years back, but not for comedy, just with some friends. It was a good time. I'm sure it'll be a good time this time.
Do you like doing roasts?
I love them.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not good at them. I don't like making. I don't like, even when I boxed, I didn't like hurting people. Like, I'd knock them down and help them up.
Roasts are my bread and butter. We grew up just talking shit to each other, like viciously.
Yeah.
So like roasts just come natural. I love it.
Well, good luck in Baltimore. Have fun down there.
Oh, thank you so much. Again, Wolfie, thank you for coming on so much. Genuinely appreciate you.
No worries.
Anything, last words?
No, man. Keep it up and keep writing and be yourself.
Hey, guys, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace and love.